Well, let's start the insanity. Giddy up.
Oh, what is on your face? Is that a disguise?
Welcome to Earth.
Good afternoon, good evening, welcome everyone to another episode of Mattyice and Chief. Chief, it's been a while. You've gotten a haircut since the last time we had a show.
Since the last time.
I've clearly started to grow out my patchy playoff beard because it's NHL hockey playoff season. Go Blackhawks, even though we're down 0-2. We're probably going to be down 0-3 by the time you've listened to this because they do play tonight. Which, Patrick, before we get really started, can we just talk about how ridiculous it is that the NBA takes so many breaks in between playoff games?
Yeah, you know I'm the NBA guy.
Clearly, I'm not.
But the scheduling for the playoffs is really, really dumb.
Yeah, like, listen, there's no way you can tell me that NBA players have it tougher than NHL guys do. And NHL guys are literally, Blackhawks played Thursday, they played Saturday, they're playing today. Today is Monday. So they will have played 3 games since Thursday, and NBA has barely played 1. They're playing their 2.
Starting to play the 2.
Yeah.
I know Cleveland and Indy play their second.
They're playing 3, NHL's playing 3 games in 5 days, and that's including a travel day.
That's what it should be, though.
Yeah, that's how it should be. So the playoffs are fully in swing for the NHL, but we're not going to talk in NBA, right? We're not going to talk NHL outside of the little bit that we already have. What we're going to talk about, guys, Christmas come early because the NFL draft is right around the corner.
Next Thursday.
So Patrick has already updated his mock draft for this year so far. So he's going to mock draft for us today. He's going to reveal his mock draft live on the show. I have not heard it, so I may call him names. I may agree with him. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. After that, if there's some time left, we may get into some quarterback discussions. We will see. But Patrick, number 1 on the board in our hearts. Well, in some of our hearts. Roger, shout out to you. The Browns with the number 1 overall pick. Patrick, let's get right into it. Who are the Browns taking here?
You can argue that they made a really dumb decision by not taking a quarterback last year. You can argue that they need to go ahead and fix their quarterback issues immediately. But they also need to fix a lot of holes, and it makes sense for them, since they have 2 picks in the first 15, that they should just go ahead and take the overall best player in the draft and then address the quarterback with the second pick that they have in the first round, which is what my opinion is. So with the first pick, I see Cleveland taking Myles Garrett out of Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think that's kind of become the consensus, is that that's the route they're going to go to start off with. And I can't say I blame him. I mean, you look at what he did at the Combine for his size.
Also his pro day.
Pretty ridiculous for a guy that size. I think, now I know there are a lot of people who are kind of wishy-washy on it, but I do think that his tape lines up with what we've seen through the Combine, through the pro day, and I think the production is there, and especially in big games. I think that production is there, so I do think it's a good pick. It's a solid pick. I think it's probably the right pick. I could maybe, if I was forced to, make an argument for another guy, which will probably be picked here soon, so I'm not going to talk about him yet. I think you could sort of make that, but I think Myles Garrett is going to be their guy. I think we're just waiting on Goodell to officially make the announcement that they're on the clock. So,
or they can do what some teams do, which I despise, is that they announce early that, oh, he's definitely a first round pick. Like he's definitely going to be the number one. Like they've already said he'll do it. And then what was that when I forgot what year it was? Was it the year that Reggie Bush was in the draft? Mario Williams, like they went ahead and signed him.
You know that used to happen more often than
Hated
no.
that. It's like, why have the draft?
Well, I mean, essentially they've been on the clock since the season ended. So I guess I mean it's not like somebody can jump over them. I would say, and this comes more from my school of thought, and this isn't how everybody approaches the draft, and I get that. But if I'm the Browns, even if I know, I've made the joke, the draft day joke, Myles Garrett, no matter what. I've made that meme even this week. But I think you go ahead, you let the clock start, you take a couple phone calls. Who knows? Somebody may decide all of a sudden, I'm trying to think, maybe the Chargers decide they want Myles Garrett so bad that they're willing to give you half a franchise for him. So I think you wait until draft day, listen, let people get desperate, but then know that you're probably going to take Myles Garrett anyways, and you're not going to be upset because nobody's going to be able to jump you if, the trade's not there. So I agree. I think Myles Garrett's the way to go. I like that pick. So moving on to number 2, Patrick. San Francisco 49ers are coming up there. Another team with a lot of needs. Patrick, where do you think they're going to go?
We talked about this last week, I think. I was working on a mock, and I told you that I was having a lot of trouble with this pick. I had seen that a lot of people were going with a different player who I think will be taken later on. But I felt like one of the best players in the draft not only deserved to be in the number 2 spot, but they definitely have a need in this area on defense. So with the number 2 pick, I have San Francisco taking Jamal Adams out of LSU.
Oh, okay. That's maybe not where I expected you to go. Listen, and that's not because Jamal Adams is a good player. I think there's somebody else on the board who I would probably take there.
Right. And that's the player who we discussed.
But yes, I will wait again to hold my opinion on him until you actually send him to a team, and then I'll go back and say
one of the reasons why I didn't have him going there at number 2 is because in recent years I feel like San Francisco has taken a lot of edge rushers early and a lot of D-line guys early. I know that I'll go with Solomon Thomas is a guy that seems like he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowl type player, but at the same time, I feel like they have other needs other than D-line, and they have guys who can produce on the D-line. They just took DeForest Buckner, who was a great player as a rookie last year. But Jamal Adams is another one of those Pro Bowl type players, in my opinion, and he is a plug-and-play type guy who will be probably day 1 starter, can make an impact right away. Not that Solomon Thomas can't, but they've already addressed the D-line in years past. They can address D-line again and would be perfectly fine. But I feel like there's more pressing needs that they have other than the DL.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Jamal Adams is a guy who, at LSU, another LSU defensive back, they seem to produce, a top 10 guy every year anyways. But I do think he's got that good safety size, 6 foot 214, that kind of guy. I think he makes a lot of tackles. The production's definitely there. So I think that's a guy who, as you mentioned, I think even in this draft, you can find some edge rushers, some defensive linemen later on in the draft. And this is a fairly deep class of safeties. We say that, we haven't mentioned Malik Hooker's there. Obviously, later on in the first round, maybe the second round, depending on who you are. You've got guys like Jabril Peppers. There's plenty of safeties in this draft too. But when you can get a safety like Jamal Adams, that's a guy you can plug and play guys more so on situationally, and I'll talk about him more here in a minute, but I think Solomon Thomas may be, at least for the first couple of years, maybe a situational kind of guy, a situational pass rusher, whereas Jamal Adams is going to be in there every single play. He's going to be making plays every single play. So not a bad idea to, I mean, look at what Seattle's done with their secondary. They kind of contrary to what a lot of teams have done. A lot of teams seem to try and build from the defensive line back. Seattle built theirs kind of from, they had some good defensive linemen, but kind of from the defensive backfield up, which is a little bit rare, but they got guys like Cam Chancellor, like Earl Thomas. And so when you can get a guy, and I'm not saying Jamal Adams right now is Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor, but when you can get a guy who's a solid contributor back there, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yes.
You get a guy who can play the run, who can play the pass, like he can. You set yourself up to be able to do things in front of him that you might not be able to do if you have, a mid-level and average at best safety. So I think that's not a bad pick. Moving on to number 3, the Chicago Bears, another team. Obviously, the first couple all need some help. The Bears could use a ton of help. Patrick, where do you think they're going to go with their first pick?
They went defense last year. They got Leonard Floyd, linebacker from Georgia. Floyd could play on the line, but he's also comfortable standing up playing linebacker, which is where they had him. And he was injured off and on last year, and he had some production. But they need D-line help. They need some more help rushing the passers as well as stopping the run, which is why I have Solomon Thomas going for number 3 to the Bears.
Okay. Solomon Thomas, I guess I've talked a little bit about him, but more from the standpoint of watching quarterback film and watching him tear quarterbacks up. I'll say this. I'll make a reference with Solomon Thomas that I think that I know you will understand where I'm coming from with this. And I think most of our listeners who know me would know this. Solomon Thomas, if I were to compare him to any athlete from any sport that I can kind of think of, 2 guys come to mind. One, a lot more deeper cut, Eddie Johnson.
Ooh.
The other guy, so both soccer players. The other guy, Josie Altidore.
Yes.
So what does that mean? If you don't watch soccer, if you don't know soccer as well as I do, if you haven't had this conversation about those 2 players like I have with Patrick multiple times, what that means is Solomon Thomas will either be the best player on the field or he will disappear. And I think you watch some of that film, the North Carolina game. Let's see, I'm trying to think of the other games against Cal. What other games did I watch him play in? I've seen him several times. I've seen enough film on him to kind of go. And, it seems like he's either making a big play, making a sack, or making a tackle for a loss, or you don't see him for a while. And so I think that might be part of the hang up for me with maybe drafting him. Now, listen, when he's going 100%, when he's, he is the best player on the field most of the time. He easily stood out to me watching quarterback film when I'm trying to zone in on a quarterback and a defensive end stands out well above the quarterback. As much as I like watching quarterbacks, that says something. When I watched that, because the North Carolina game was the first game I saw him from watching a film perspective. When I saw that game, my eyes got big and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like he's I was like, the best player in this game is not Mitchell Trubisky, excuse me. Not Mitchell Trubisky. The best player in this game is not Davis Webb. The best player, it's Solomon Thomas. The problem is that, like I said, there are a couple games where you'll see, take Iowa. I want to say I watched some CJ Beathard film and I watched that game or something. I may have seen that one. But in the Rose Bowl, he had 4 tackles, 2 for a loss, and a sack in that game. But at other times, he kind of disappeared. And so I think, when you look at taking a Jamal Adams over him, if you've already got some defensive linemen, I think the way Solomon Thomas is going to project to the next level for the first season or two probably is he's going to be a third down pass rush specialist. And not in a bad way, kind of like Vic Beasley last year. We talked about him going into the Super Bowl. Vic Beasley was a guy who put up great numbers, but wasn't on the field every single play. That wasn't on the field a whole lot. And I think that could be what you see with Solomon Thomas. Now, obviously, part of that depends on what team he goes to and what's around him. But I think that could be where he ends up. So I could see him going number 2, and I wouldn't be upset. You know, if I'm San Francisco, I wouldn't be upset with that. But I could see him also falling to that 8, 9, 10 through 15 sort of range. And I also wouldn't be super surprised because I think his film bears out that sometimes he has a tendency to disappear. Mm-hmm. So, but listen, like I said, when he's on, he's my favorite player. He's one of my favorite players in this draft.
Absolutely.
I went real long-winded on Solomon Thomas. Let's get back to your picks since this is your mock draft. At number 4, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars picking there. Patrick, tell me who you got them taking.
This is when the draft is going to start to get interesting. I feel like picks 1 through 3 are going to be Myles Garrett for sure, and then Jamal Adams, Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas could leapfrog, go 2, and then Jamal could go 3. But I feel like those are going to be your top 3 guys. Number 4 is when things could shake up, things could get interesting, and things can go multiple ways. And also, this is where I feel like teams could be trading up, trading down, making moves, as starting with this number 4 spot. I've seen multiple mock drafts. I've seen multiple reports where Jacksonville could be interested in getting a running back. I've seen multiple reports where they're looking at defensive back help, D-line help, maybe O.J. Howard for tight end. I've seen a lot of different things. And I went back and forth on a few players for Jacksonville because they have a lot of young talent, but they still have a lot of needs and a lot of holes to fill because some of that young talent hasn't produced yet. You could go running back with this spot. I feel like they shouldn't take a running back number 4. I feel like they could get a great running back in the second round. And there's multiple guys where they could get, but I don't want to throw out some names because I don't want to ruin the rest of the mock. But with my number 4 pick, I have them taking Jonathan Allen out of Alabama. I think another plug-and-play guy. There's been reports that teams are kind of scared off because of his shoulders. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think that he can make an impact right away. I haven't seen anything where he's not going to be able to play immediately unless something comes up where he needs to get surgery, which I haven't seen anything about him possibly getting surgery after the draft. Even if he did, though, I think he would be able to play, he might be able to miss a month, but I think if he misses a month and he plays in the league 6, 8, 10 years, I think you can afford to miss a month.
Yeah.
But I think it helps that young defense out immensely. There's more tight end. I feel like they should go tight end in the second round. Again, I don't want to throw out any names. But I feel like the D-line is something they need to solidify early. Unless they want to trade back or maybe get maybe a linebacker in the second round. That will be good. Or trade back, maybe get another pick for maybe a day 3 pick, and do something with that, and maybe get a cornerback later on. They could take one of these top corners. There's a lot of things that Jacksonville could do. But if they were to stay at 4, I think they go Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's in a very interesting spot because I think, kind of like you said, I think 1, 2, 3 kind of seem pretty. I mean, I'm sure they'll entertain thoughts and they'll entertain trade talk, but I think those three seem more solid along the lines of, yeah, these are probably the three best guys on the board. These are probably the three guys, one of the three guys we're going to take. I think once you start getting to 4, you get to, with Jacksonville, you get a team that they've got some needs, but they've got a lot of young people on their team still. And I think a lot of question marks, but I think they're also kind of in that spot where you're like, the value, and we talk about value all the time when draft rolls around. You talk about value-wise, you got a lot of guys kind of in that same, without mentioning too many names, you got guys like Marshawn Lattimore, Malik Hooker, Leonard Fournette, O.J. Howard, which you mentioned. You got, you start getting Taco Charlton. I know some guys like him. Dalvin Cook, even, you could say. Mitchell Trubisky. One of my favorite players in this draft, David Njoku. Even someone like Reuben Foster, Hassan Reddick. As I'm naming names, that's, through 14 on the particular, top prospect list that I'm looking at. Those are the guys still available. And so I think you could see them possibly, like you mentioned, trading back a couple spots. I think maybe you drop down. You might be able to drop down to that 8-9 spot and still pick up O.J. Howard. He's a guy that might still be there. You could trade back there and still get Jonathan Allen. I think that's a possibility.
Jonathan Allen, I feel like if he doesn't get drafted at 4, he could free fall.
Yeah, he could a little bit. The Chargers are likely.
Let's say he's going to fall to like the 20s.
Yeah, like that 9-10. So I think if you're the Jags, I think you're not necessarily looking to trade, but if there's a good chance that we could see Jacksonville trade out. If not, Jonathan Allen there, Jonathan Allen at 8, maybe somebody else who might still be sitting there at 8 would be a good choice. So I think Jacksonville's really in a pretty good spot to get what they want plus some maybe out of this draft, out of this first round. So moving on to the number 5 spot, we got the Tennessee Titans. Patrick, do they go corner here? Do they get our first corner off the board?
They don't get our first corner off the board, but they get our second safety off the board. They could go Marshawn Lattimore, but I think they're going to go with Malik Hooker out of Ohio State.
Okay, I figured you were. I thought you might say some more of that. I think that's probably a pretty decent fit. I could almost see that, and I'm sure it wouldn't be in their front office, but I could see that almost being a coin flip between Lattimore and Hooker there.
Probably.
Just whichever one they value a little bit more. Although, most teams, I think probably what they do is they have essentially tiers, and both of those guys are high tier in the same tier. So, if Malik Hooker's gone by then and they have to get Marshawn Lattimore, it's not like they're going to be upset. So I think that's kind of a toss-up which way they go. Malik Hooker, not a bad slot there. So moving on to number 6, Patrick, the New York Football Jets, Jets. What are they doing?
Before I talk on the Jets, just going back on the Titans, I feel like because the Bears could go secondary on their 3rd pick, even though I feel like if Solomon Thomas is there at 3, they're going to get him. But they could, if they do shake things up and go like Malik Hooker, for example, or
Marshawn Lattimore. I can see them going Lattimore very easily because they need a corner.
Yeah,
at least one.
Yeah, then I could see a deal where they do end up taking. It's going to be. I feel like it's going to be safety or corner. One of those.
Yeah.
It's a matter of which one's still. It's just a matter of which one's available by the time that 5th pick comes. I know they need receiver, but I feel like
there's plenty of depth at receiver.
Receiver's going to be there.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it whenever I get back to them. Receiver's going to be there.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about that. But the Jets, again, a myriad of different things that they could do with this pick. They need
a myriad of different things.
They need just about everything. This is where I feel like I've seen O.J. Howard going at 4. I think that this is about as early as you'll see him at 6, but I don't see him going there. The Jets need a quarterback for the future. I know that they have – who did they just sign? From the Browns. I can't think of his name right now.
Hoyer? No.
No. Way older than Hoyer.
McCown?
McCown. I know they just signed McCown. He's without a doubt a bridge guy.
Yeah.
And obviously, none of the quarterbacks that they have are going to be it because Bryce Petty's not going to do it for you. Obviously, I don't think they have a lot of confidence in Hackenberg. They let Geno Smith walk. I think they gladly let Geno Smith walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they need a quarterback. And I feel like they don't have the time to wait. They don't have the time. Honestly, they don't have the time to wait until the second round for a quarterback. So, some people argue that they can wait until the second round and get some money. I don't even like. They need a quarterback ASAP, which is why I feel like they're going to take Mitchell Trubisky, first round pick.
I guess since we'll talk quarterbacks more later, when I talk quarterbacks, I've seen some people say Deshaun Watson there at 6.
Yeah.
I've seen obviously, the Jets do need a quarterback now. You know what? I won't.
Here's where the argument of not taking a quarterback comes in. It's because they need so many other things. They need line help, which they would need to trade back for that. They need offensive line help. They could take O.J. Howard.
Let me take
a running back here.
Let me take that the other version of if they don't take Sir Mitchell Trubisky or a Deshaun Watson at 6. And if they were to go past the first round, wait till the second round, what guys are likely going to be available to them? That's when you're starting to get into your Davis Webbs, your Brad Keyes, your Nathan Petermans, or your guys who are going to, I will say, for sure be there. We'll talk. Those guys will be second or third round guys at best. So I think it depends on what you really think about what you have as to whether or not you can wait that long. Is Christian Hackenberg the answer? Maybe freshman Christian Hackenberg, as weird as that says. Freshman Christian Hackenberg, who is better than junior Christian Hackenberg,
yes.
I think you might be able to say is the answer. Is Bryce Petty the answer? No. That's a resounding no. So, I don't know. Well, I think they would be better served if the draft goes the way you've said it would go so far. So guys that are still on the board, I think you're better off going Marshawn Lattimore. You're better off going with a guy, maybe even an O.J. Howard, as you mentioned, in that spot instead of the quarterbacks because, well, I'll save all of that for later. But I think if a guy like Marshawn Lattimore is there, if a guy like O.J. Howard is still there, I think they're a better option than the quarterbacks. Of course, if they're not still there, that means that probably a Malik Hooker or a Jamal Adams or a Solomon Thomas is there, and I think you take one of those guys over maybe not Solomon Thomas. I don't know how much D-line help the Jets need, but I think
they're loaded.
The other positions, I think there's more talent at in the first round, and I would take them over quarterback. But I know you're going with what's more likely to happen. Probably.
I'm going with what's more likely to happen.
See,
I'm putting needs in as a factor. I'm putting,
Yeah, and this is why I don't. You like doing mock drafts. This is why
I love doing mock drafts.
This is why I don't do mock drafts because I struggle with looking at it as team by team. I look at a guy like a Mitchell Trubisky and I think, I probably wouldn't take him before the second round. And so it's hard for me to say, if I'm the Jets at 6, I'm taking Mitchell Trubisky. But anyways, we'll move on. We'll talk quarterbacks later. At number 7, we've got the Chargers, the newly minted LA Chargers. Patrick, we got to start getting used to that. Who are they taking here?
We do have to start getting used to that. We've thrown his name out a lot, and it's time he finally gets drafted. Marshawn Lattimore is my pick to go to LA, to go to the Chargers. I don't know why, for some reason, people are throwing around, maybe the LA Chargers are going to draft a quarterback with the first round. No, they're not going to do that. No, they're not.
Maybe they could.
Anybody could.
They could. Phillip Rivers, does he really want to be in LA? Is he going to be playing that much longer?
He's not going to be playing that much longer. I'll say this.
But I'll tell you the answer to San Diego's needs. I don't know what you're about to say, but I'm gonna jump in front of you. If I'm the San Diego Chargers, I'm taking. Well, actually, tell me who you're picking first.
First off, it's the LA Chargers.
Whatever. What'd I say?
San Diego.
It's gonna happen. Get used to it.
They're picking Marshall. I feel like they're picking Marshawn Lattimore.
Okay. Yes. So I would pick Marshawn. If Marshawn Lattimore's there, I take Marshawn Lattimore. If Malik Hooker isn't there or is there instead, if the Titans flip on that and they take Marshawn Lattimore instead of Malik Hooker, I take Malik Hooker because there's a kid who next year likely will be coming out. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think so.
If I'm the LA Chargers, I would be thinking about picking now. Even though they can't pick now, I would be considering that when I consider my future.
Does he play for USC?
Yes. He's a quarterback.
Then I know exactly who you're talking about. Yes.
If I'm them,
your theory for LA is my theory for 49ers.
Yes.
I threw that conspiracy theory out before.
So I think you wait on quarterback. You go defensive help here, which they need some. You get a guy like Marshawn Lattimore who could be a top who if Myles Garrett wasn't going to the Browns, probably could be a top. He's one of those top 5 guys. He could go anywhere in that top 5. And
you don't know bold prediction. Super bold prediction.
Bold predict me.
Bold. No, it's super bold. It has nothing to do with the guys being drafted this year.
Yeah, go. Bold.
Sam's name will be mentioned on next Thursday.
Oh, absolutely.
His name will be mentioned. Maybe somebody will talk about waiting for a quarterback to take him next year. His name will be thrown out. It will obviously be thrown out during the weekend. That's easy. That's easy money.
It'll be day one.
I'll think they will say his name day one.
Day one talk. Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, if I'm the Chargers, I wait a little bit because they can. If any of the teams in the top can wait for a Sam Darnold, because that's who we're talking about. They're the ones that could because they actually do have a quarterback. And I know a lot of people hate on Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers isn't the best quarterback ever, but he's a darn good quarterback, and he just needs help around him. So, Patrick, we're going to kind of rapid fire here a couple because we got to get moving on real quick if we want to talk quarterbacks at all because we've already been talking for a while. So, at number 8, we've got the Carolina Panthers. Patrick, who are they picking?
You want to do rapid fire, and then I'll throw the first running back at you. So let's see how rapid fire we go. Because Panthers need a running back. They let Jonathan Stewart go. They just don't have one. Plain and simple. They don't have a running back. So I have them taking Leonard Fournette at number 8.
You know what? Despite my thoughts on running backs, I'm actually not going to argue that pick. I think that's a good fit for them. He's a big back. He's a strong back. If you were to ask me going into it, what team does Leonard Fournette look like he would be a running back for? It would be Carolina. So I think that's probably a solid pick. I think he's going to be good. So despite my usual don't get a running back early, I would allow them to pick a running back early because they need to put somebody. Listen, I say rapid fire and then I talk for a long time. They need to, if they want Cam Newton to be successful, because Cam Newton, I'll say it here, and you can hate me for it. People everywhere, please do. Cam Newton is not an elite quarterback. Cam Newton is an above average quarterback. And that's even a bit of a stretch. I think he's closer to an average quarterback. But if he's got a good, solid running game around him, he can be above average to an MVP level type quarterback. So I think you get a guy like Leonard Fournette around, it makes Cam Newton much better. And so that almost is more important than how good Leonard Fournette is going to be, if that makes any sort of sense. Let's move on. At the 9 spot, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Patrick, who you got?
Cincinnati, I had them taking the first linebacker in the draft. I have them taking Reuben Foster out of Alabama.
Yeah, I think maybe in any other year, Reuben Foster might go a little bit earlier. Obviously, there's a little bit of a question mark of what went on at the combine, so maybe he's a bit of an off-the-field question mark, and maybe that plays into why he goes so low. But there's just a lot of talent in front of him, too, I think. So it's probably a decent spot. He'll probably fit in with the Cincinnati scheme pretty well, so I'm not surprised that goes there. At the 10 slot, we got the Buffalo Bills. Patrick, who you got there?
I have the Bills taking tight end O.J. Howard out of Alabama.
Back-to-back. We got 3 straight SEC guys and back-to-back Crimson Tides. I'll say this. That's a good pick for them there if they stay there. I don't think they stay there. I think they're going to try and move up into, say, I would say their most likely trading partner is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think we see the swap there. And I think
Carolina will try to trade up with Jacksonville to get to 4 to try to get Leonard Fournette.
I could see that also being the case, but I could see what I'm thinking is that Buffalo's going to.
But I can also see the Bills trade up to try to get OJ from Jacksonville as well.
I don't think if they trade up, it's not for OJ. I think if they trade up, it's for Malik Hooker or for Marshawn Lattimore or even Jamal Adams.
Bill Gilmore's hole.
I think they go. I think if they trade up, they're looking to go on the defensive side. If they can't get the right value for it, if they're if Jacksonville's asking too much, they sit at 10 and they pick OJ Howard and they're fine with it because OJ Howard's going to be a darn good football player at the next level. Moving on at 11, we've got the New Orleans Saints. Patrick, who they picking?
Saints have 2 picks in the first round. This one and then the last pick. I have Marlon Humphrey out of Ohio State going at number 11.
All right. Shoot, you got him jumping quite a bit.
He is rising on the boards. And not only that, but the Saints are beyond desperate for secondary help.
Yeah.
You can argue that he might be a reach, but I think that the Saints are, again, desperate for DPs, desperate for defense. I feel like this could be me just dreaming things, but I feel like every year they go so heavy on linebackers, and 1 out of the 8 that they draft might work out. So I feel like it's time to go a different direction.
Yeah, well, and you say reach, but I don't think it's a reach in the sense that I think he's probably the next best, the third best corner in this draft. Behind, or maybe I guess he'd be the second behind Marshawn Lattimore. And so is it that much of a reach? I think there's other teams that could need a corner. And so if you're there, you've got to take him if you like him. So I don't think that's necessarily a reach because I do think he's a first-round talent. Other guys are going to take him if you don't. Number 12, we got our first return, our first double pick in the first round. Patrick, we're back to the Browns. Tell me who they're going here.
The Browns cannot wait any longer for a quarterback. They have to take one ASAP at this point. They cannot trade back.
ASAP is possible.
It's possible, but they shouldn't, or else they're morons.
ASAP is possible.
ASAP is possible. They take Deshaun Watson from Clemson.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hold all quarterback talk again. So I think they're probably going to have to. Maybe I don't know. I was throwing around with Roger earlier because apparently Hugh is a big fan of Josh Dobbs. So he gave him a lot of snaps at the Senior Bowl. I could see Josh Dobbs being the quarterback that maybe Hugh wants to go for. If that's the case, you're going to get him in the 4th, 5th round, maybe 6th round even, probably 4th round. Late 4, or maybe that first pick in the 5th round. He's going to be around for a while. So if that's the case, I've said if the options there that they should probably not go quarterback there. If they don't feel solid in any of the guys, and you can pick up a defensive lineman, you can pick up a linebacker in that spot. But I think you're right; they're probably going to go quarterback there. So I guess Deshaun Watson is the next guy off the board. Number 13, Patrick, I almost said St. Louis Cardinals. They're not. The Arizona Cardinals. Who you got?
This is going to probably be the first pick that I make that may raise some eyebrows because they need the heir apparent to come in immediately. I have the Cardinals taking Patrick Mahomes in the first round.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to say much more about it. We'll move on because we got to get through these a little quicker. And we'll talk quarterbacks later. As said, they could go on the defensive side of the ball. I could see them adding some help in the defensive backfield, or at linebacker, if they don't go there. So at 14, though, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. Patrick, who they taking?
I'll go ahead and say this though: no more quarterbacks in the first round for me.
Okay,
Those are it.
Makes it easier
Eagles
for me to not talk about them.
That's fair. The Eagles are going to take Derek Barnett with this pick out of Tennessee. They need rushers. They need defensive help really badly. They've just had some injuries come out. So I know they just got a D tackle, but they need someone to rush the passer. So I got Derek Barnett coming out at this pick.
Yeah, so probably not a bad decision there. Of course, you can split hairs on a lot of these defensive linemen. At this point, it's kind of more of a who fits your scheme and who you like better for whatever reason. So probably not a bad idea to get D-line help. At 15, Patrick, it's time to make your favorite pick of the draft so far. Who are the Colts taking?
There was a player I struggled back and forth between Dalvin Cook and the player who I actually think the Colts are going to take. I thought, part of me really wants them to take Dalvin Cook if he's available, just because the Colts need. I know they have Frank Gore, but
Frank
they need
Gore's old, man.
Frank Gore's old, and I feel like if he's going to have another productive year, it's going to be one more productive year, and that's pretty much going to be it. But I feel like they should just wait until the second round and take a running back. If they wait and don't take a running back in the first round, they got to take one in the second round, in my opinion. But I feel like defense, mainly linebacker, is a much bigger need, and especially if they can get this guy. I have the Colts taking Hassan Reddick out of Temple, who I would love for them to take. High character guy, high motor guy, produced at the Combine, produced at the Senior Bowl, produced at his pro day, produced during the year. Again, high moral character guy, couldn't ask for a better guy. This is a guy you want your daughter to marry. That type of guy.
So Patrick's going all in with Hassan Reddick here.
If they take Hassan Reddick,
how sad are you going to be if they don't now?
I will be a little sad if they don't take Hassan Reddick. I'll admit. But if they take Dalvin Cook instead, I will completely understand.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that when you said between Dalvin Cook and somebody, and I almost got really excited. That's why I did the Aziz Ansari face, but I'm not going to give any hints as to what I was thinking. 16, you've got the Baltimore. Well, you'll find out later.
Okay.
At number 16, you got the Baltimore Ravens. Quickly, who are you picking there?
I had the Ravens taking Corey Davis out of Western Michigan.
Our first receiver off the board, Patrick.
Yes.
You got a ways in it before you gave a first receiver.
That's why I told you the Titans wouldn't have anything to worry about at number 18. But yeah, Corey Davis, I think he is arguably the best receiver out of this class, even though you have three top guys, or basically 1A, 1B, and 1C.
Yeah.
With Mike Williams, Corey Davis, and John Ross. But I think Corey Davis will be the first receiver taken.
I do like me some Corey Davis. Obviously, I watched several of.
I feel like he's
games.
the most technical receiver out of the draft.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he'll be a very, very good NFL receiver. Moving on, we got number 17. We got that football team in Washington. Patrick, who they picking?
I feel like they're taking running back, and this is where Dalvin Cook goes. He's going to Washington.
fitting that a Florida State guy goes to a team that has alternate jerseys that look like Florida State's. Actually, when I play Madden and I start with that team, because I always relocate their franchise,
Good.
and change the name, obviously.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I actually do that just for you most of the time. But every time I do that, when I play a game with them, I only wear the Florida State jerseys because they look cooler. They're the best ones. So moving on to number 18, we got the Tennessee Titans coming back around. And are you going Mike Williams here?
I'm going Mike Williams here.
I thought that's where you were going with that.
They need another receiver because Mariota. Who wouldn't want to give Mariota more weapons?
Please.
So I say take Mike Williams.
I think that's a good decision. I could see him going earlier, possibly to if O.J. Howard isn't there for the Bills. I could see the Bills picking him if they decide to not go defensive line or linebacker or anything on the defense because they need that.
You know who I feel like? I honestly feel like if the Bills don't go receiver first round, I don't know. I just have this feeling like he's going to be a Bill. Cooper Kupp.
I could see that. I don't know why.
I can see them drafting Cooper Kupp
because he just seems like a guy who should be playing in cold weather.
Absolutely.
That may be all it is. So at number 19, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Patrick, who are they picking quickly?
I have them taking Jabril Peppers out of Michigan.
Ooh, Jabril. Finally going Jabril. If I can find him so I can move him over.
They can move him in multiple places. Also, return guy.
Yeah, which is something they could use.
Absolutely.
So next, we've got at number 20, we've got the Denver Broncos. Patrick, who are they picking?
I've done multiple mock drafts. Every year I do multiple mock drafts. Like, for example, Vernon Hargraves, every mock draft last year went to Tampa Bay. Every one of them. Also, almost every one of them, I've had Leonard Fournette going to Carolina this year. Every single one, I have had Ryan Ramczyk from Wisconsin going to the Broncos. I feel like if you're going to have, other than first pick Myles Garrett, if you're going to have a guarantee, in my opinion, I have not only O-lineman, but just Ryan Ramczyk as a Bronco. They need O-line help. There's a few teams.
That's the first O-lineman you have going.
First O-lineman I have. Around in this 20 range, there's a few teams that desperately need O-line help, and they're the first one.
Yeah. And Ramczyk just seems like that's a name that on the back, it looks like it should be on the back of a Denver Bronco jersey.
Absolutely.
So number 21, we've got the newly uniformed and sweet-looking uniformed Detroit Lions. Patrick, who are they picking here?
I have them going rusher, and this guy's kind of fallen a bit, but I feel like he's fallen to the right team. I have them taking Taco Charlton out of Michigan.
You don't want to try and call him by his first name? His real first name?
No.
Vidante? Vidante?
Yeah, I can say Taco a lot better.
Yeah, Taco sounds cooler anyways. Yeah, I think that's a team that can always. It seems like they could always use defensive help, and that can't hurt them at all. At number 22, Patrick, the Miami Dolphins. Who are they going to pick?
I have them taking Garyon Conley, defensive back out of Ohio State.
How many Ohio State defensive backs? They're going to have to replace their entire backfield because of the first round of the draft.
I feel like they did the same thing last year, but here we go again. They're back at it.
Yeah, they always seem to. At number 23, can't hurt for them to have for the Miami to get defensive back help anyways. At number 23, we've got the New York Football Giants. Patrick, who are they picking?
I have them taking. We're gonna have two tight ends taken in the first round, and I have them taking David Njoku out of Miami. This pick.
You want my honest opinion on him?
What?
He's pretty much my favorite player in the draft.
He's so good.
He is so good. I was hoping that you were gonna let him fall all the way to 26.
Honestly, if he's a play, if Colts go wild card and take him first pick. People are like, oh, no, you stupid. I'm like, all right, that's cool.
You want a semi-dream scenario? A semi-dream scenario is that we trade the Seahawks trade Jimmy Graham for an offensive lineman who's a solid offensive lineman, and then we draft Njoku in the first round.
Ooh.
That would be my dream scenario, but it's not happening. It won't happen, but I would really love it.
You could dream though.
Yeah. Not as many people are on the Matt doesn't want Seahawks fans who don't want Jimmy Graham bandwagon as I am. I'm pretty much by myself on that. At number 24,
There are a few others.
There are a few others. That's a great pick for them. They can use some help they can use some help to give what's his name? Odell Beckham some space. And Njoku is a
help for so long.
And Njoku is a matchup nightmare. So solid pickup for them. 24, we've got the Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders. How do we refer to them now?
I feel like they're Las Vegas, but they're still in Oakland for like 2 years. Yeah. So they're still Oakland.
At number 24, we have the Homeless Raiders. Patrick, who are they picking?
They are a team who are steadily filling holes, but they still have a big hole in the defensive back area. You could argue that you could go Adoree Jackson in this pick, and I would be perfectly fine with them taking him. But I have Tre'Davious White of LSU going there just because I love the pedigree of LSU D-backs.
Decent school for...
Even the ones that you would say have, quote-unquote, not panned out have still been pretty solid guys. Yeah. So I would say it's a... Even if he's, doesn't pan out like, for example, I don't know, Jamal Adams, I still feel like he'll have a solid career. Yeah. So I'm taking Tre'Davious White out of LSU.
I can tell you who they would have picked like 10 years ago without question. But they no longer do that, and so they're not going to pick John Ross there.
They would. You don't think they might take John Ross?
Let's not act like they're not asking that question in the draft room, but they seem to have the offensive side a little bit more figured out than in the past, and I think they're going to go defense, and I think that's probably the right guy. So moving on, we're going to go through the next few kind of quickly so we can talk some quarterbacks. At number 25, Patrick, speaking of quarterbacks, you said we don't have any more first-round quarterbacks, so I'm guessing the Texans aren't going to take a QB.
They're not taking a QB in this pick. While they need a quarterback, they need O-line help so much more. So I'm having them taking Forrest Lamp out of Western Kentucky.
No! No, a spot too soon.
No, you know what, though? That's okay, because one of my favorite guys in the draft is going next.
Okay, perfect. That's fine by me. So, yeah, they can use some help there as well. So, Patrick, 26, tell me what I want to hear. Seattle Seahawks, for those who don't know.
Seattle Seahawks are taking Garrett Bowles out of Utah.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite guys.
He's a goofy-looking dude, but I can't say I know a lot about him. A guy I wouldn't mind seeing here. It's a little high, and granted, we could also pick him in the second round because we need every offensive line position filled. I would be okay with Antonio Garcia.
You could get him in the second round.
You can get him in the second round, but I would love me some Antonio Garcia. He was a lot of fun at the combine. He got a little handsy with some people, showed a little fire, and it was really nice. I was like, we could use him on the offensive line. So moving on, number 27, Patrick, the Kansas City Chiefs, not Chefs, are picking there. Who are they picking?
Kansas City Chiefs are taking Malik McDowell out of Michigan State.
Getting some D-line help there. They can use some depth on defense for sure. At number 28, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Patrick, who do they go with?
They definitely need DB help. They had like 2 or 3 walk out on them. And they're going to go with Chidobe Awuzie. That's probably not how you say his last name. Cornerback out of Colorado.
Okay. Awuzie. I think is that what you said?
Yeah.
Something like that. You were close. That's probably a good pick.
You could also see them going Adoree Jackson.
Maybe. I've seen some
I
people.
feel like Adoree Jackson's going to go within the first 3 picks of the second round.
Probably. That's kind of more where I think he is. Number 29, Patrick, the always needing help on defense, Green Bay Packers. Who are they going to pick?
They're taking offense because can you name their starting running back?
No. No, it's Montgomery.
And he was a receiver before that. So that's why they're taking Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh.
This pick.
Okay, time for the truth. I thought that's where you were going with the Colts.
Oh, really?
When you said
I
Dalvin Cook.
was taking him too.
You want my honest opinion on Christian McCaffrey? You're going to get it right now. Christian McCaffrey is the only running back I would take in the first round.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we know if you listen to the show, if you've listened to our draft shows before, you know how I feel about running backs. Leonard Fournette's going to be good. Don't get me wrong when I say that. Dalvin Cook, I think, is probably going to be good. I'm a little more up in the air on him. Christian McCaffrey can do so many things. He can line up as a receiver. He can punt return. He can kick return. He can run the ball out of the backfield. And he's not just a... I actually think... I don't think he's going to be here. I think he's gone at 14. I think because he reminds me a lot of a guy who made a pretty decent career.
Dawkins?
No. Darren Sproles. He reminds me a lot of Darren Sproles, except he's faster. Go back and watch the film of him at the Combine. The only time I've ever seen anybody make cuts, the way he made cuts around cones, it's the only time I've watched somebody run drills like that and just gone, whoa, wow. You know, and everybody within the kind of 3 rows that were around us, we got to watch the running backs work out. Just, he looks like he's ice skating. And I mean that in a good way, not like in a he's tripping over his own feet way. He looks like he is legitimately gliding across the ground when he's making cuts. I love this kid. If he's there at 29, they'd be dumb not to take him. I would say that about most teams in this spot. I think he's really, really good. I think he's going to put up a lot of numbers in the NFL. So somebody is going to be very happy to pick him. Hopefully, if you're a Packers fan, it's you who are happy. If Patrick is correct.
I'll say this. I've said every year that if the Colts take an Arkansas Razorback in the draft, I will buy their jersey. I don't care if I have no money. I don't care what happens. I will buy their jersey.
If they draft McCaffrey, you're getting the jersey?
There are also just a select handful of guys that if the Colts take in the first round, I will more than likely buy their jersey. Hassan Reddick is one of them. And Christian McCaffrey is also one of them.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he's there.
And David, it's basically Reddick, Njoku, which I don't think that'll happen. But in the rare event that it happened, I would buy his jersey, and also McCaffrey.
I wouldn't be surprised if at 26, since apparently we're going to start them all at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle takes McCaffrey the way we've been loading up on running backs this offseason. We're actually not going to start an offensive line. We're just going to put 6 running backs out on the field and try and get one of them the football every single play.
I mean, technically you're losing a running back because Beast Mode may go to Oakland.
Yeah, but he wasn't on the roster. Hang on.
Yeah.
Now that you've said this, let me pull up. I think we've talked about this before. How many running backs are on the daggum roster for the Seattle Seahawks? And I still would not be surprised if we took Christian McCaffrey because of the things he can do. Part of that's because of that. Let me just name off who is on the roster, minus Beast Mode because he's not. Alex Collins, George Farmer, Eddie Lacy, Trey Madden, Terrence McGee, J.D. McKissick, Troymaine Pope, C.J. Process, Thomas Rawls, Kelvin Taylor. How many is that, Patrick?
That is, because I've got the roster at 2, 1, 2, 3.
That's 10. That's 10. We've got 10 running backs on roster, and I guarantee that we draft at least 1, if not 2 more this draft.
You guys will draft one.
So don't be surprised if Christian McCaffrey. Anyway, we got to move on. We got 3 more picks. We got to get through them real quick. At number 30, Patrick, the Steelers. Who are they going to pick?
I have them taking Zach Cunningham out of Vanderbilt.
Okay.
I feel like they need to get younger at linebacker, and I feel like he's a guy. I don't. It's not that the play will make him fall this far because I feel like he's a 15 to 25 range, but just because of certain teams' needs, I feel like he may fall down to here, but he's going to fall gracefully into the laps of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think they'd be plenty happy with that. At number 31, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Patrick, who do they pick?
I have them taking Charles Harris, a rusher out of Missouri.
Missouri always seems to have a guy like that.
They do.
They always
really
seem to have a first-round pass rusher. At number 32, the last pick of the first round, Patrick, the New Orleans Saints. Who are they going to take?
I have them. They also need a linebacker, but I have them taking T.J. Watt out of Wisconsin.
Those lucky, lucky guys. Listen, T.J. Watt's going to be a good football player. He's not going to be as good as his brother.
But his brother's one of the best, so he can still be dang good.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. I think he'll be better than Derek, but he won't be as good as JJ.
Yeah.
TJ, the middle J, the bottom J, whatever, because he's the last one, is going to be the second best Watt brother, but that's not going to be a bad thing. I think he's going to be fine. I like his motor. He's got some good speed. He's got some good quickness. He's going to be able to pass rush. He's going to be able to do a lot of different things for him. So I really like that pick. So that is Patrick's possibly final for our show mock draft. I think it's solid.
I may have a new one because every year there's always some retard who gets caught smoking pot or something like a week before, and that makes him slip in the draft. So someone's going to slip up and do something really, really stupid, which is going to cause him to fall in the draft. So in the event that something like that happens, I'll make another one. But I feel like I'm pretty solid on this one. I know people are going to say you don't have DeCarson McKinley taken in the first round. You don't have John Ross taken in the first round. Some people might even argue I don't even have Alvin Kamara taken in the first round. Just the way it is. It's a lot of it just has to do with team needs and who I feel like they will take. It's not the sense of they're not worth taking in the first round.
Yeah.
This is what I feel like is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. I think you put a beautiful bow on it. Now, Patrick, we were going to take a break, but because we're running out of time very quickly, we're actually a little over time. But we also haven't done one in a couple weeks, so we're going to go a little long on this. So we're not going to take a break because it'd be almost pointless at this point. But Patrick, it is now time, because I said I was going to. It's time to talk a little quarterbacks. So what I'm going to let happen here is that I'm going to let you ask me some questions. Now, you can ask me whatever you want referring to quarterbacks in this year's draft only. Well, no, I guess it could technically be about some other quarterbacks. But ask me some questions, maybe comparatively to where you had them going drafted. Just whatever. Yeah, so it's quarterback time. Welcome to school.
School.
Okay. Call me John Gruden because it's quarterback school.
How many quarterbacks do you feel like are going to be taking in the first round?
I think there's a good chance that 4 get taken. Just because that kind of, I actually could pull it up. I just.
Do you feel like teams are going to get trigger happy?
I think so.
I love how I dropped the phrase trigger happy. But do you feel like teams are going to get too antsy and impatient as far as wanting to get a quarterback and trade up, trade back to the first round to try and solidify a quarterback pick?
I think so, because there's kind of two schools of thought on it. There's a couple teams, and you mentioned a couple of them, who are looking to replace guys, not necessarily this year. And this is actually, I think, a decent class for trying to replace a quarterback in 2 years. So you mentioned you had Arizona taking Patrick Mahomes at 13. I know I've seen some people say Patrick Mahomes to the Kansas City Chiefs,
That too.
Deshaun Watson to the Kansas City Chiefs. I've seen a couple of different guys to teams that already have quarterbacks. And so in that sense, listen, if you can get Deshaun Watson and let him sit for 2 years, I like that pick. In the first round, I'm okay with that. If you get Patrick Mahomes and let him sit for a year, I'm plenty fine with that, because I'm sure you'll ask me about him more here in a minute. Mitch Trubisky, I'm kind of the same way. I think if he got to sit for a year or two behind, especially a guy like an Alex Smith, who I think he's actually very comparable to, a guy like maybe even a Carson Palmer, if he's not going to go to Arizona, I don't think, because I think he'll be gone by then. But if he could go to a situation like that and not start immediately, I think he'd be better off down the road. I don't agree with it, but I think DeShone Kizer will probably go in the first round. I think there's a fairly big gap between, if you ask me, I think there's a big gap between the top quarterback and the next two, and then the next one, and then the rest of them. But I know most people have kind of labeled Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, Kizer, and Mahomes as their top four guys. Those are all tier one quarterbacks. Everybody else there's a big gap between them and everybody else. So I from what I've seen, enough people value Kizer high enough that I think he'll go in the first round. So I think 4 quarterbacks in the first round.
Do you feel like, and you did mention this earlier, I know you said it's probably possible and it's one of the better drafts to do it, but do you feel like teams maybe like a New Orleans or a Los Angeles Chargers or Arizona, do you feel like those type of teams are going to be looking to draft their heir apparent in this year's draft because they have seen teams lose a quarterback and then free fall in the rankings of the NFL and say, we don't want to be those type of teams, so we want to draft a quarterback while we still have a Drew Brees or a Carson Palmer and trim him for a little bit while they're still playing?
I think the good thing going for a team like, I'll take the Saints since you said it. I think a good thing going for a team like the Saints is that Drew Brees, knock on wood, is relatively a healthy guy outside of the one shoulder issue he had.
That was so long ago.
Yeah, which was a long time, and his shoulder's been stronger since then. And I think Phillip Rivers is another guy who doesn't get injured a whole lot. It's more of a, does he want to be there? How long does he want to play? He's got like 80 kids sitting at home, so he's got to make a paycheck for a while. To answer your question, I don't think this draft class is deep enough that you have to this year. I think you can wait until next year and maybe get a guy or two. But we talk about it all the time. I think there are guys that you hear all the time, especially around draft time, that if that's your guy, go get him. If you think, and I'm not saying he is, but if you think Davis Webb is the quarterback of your future and you get him in this draft, don't wait until next year, even if you've got Drew Brees, who may be around 2 more years. Go ahead and get him, let him sit. Do I think you can find a guy like a Davis Webb or a Nathan Peterman 2 years from now? Yes. To me, there's not anyone in this class there's one person in this class who I think is as much of a lock to be a franchise quarterback as possible. I don't think anybody else is. I think everybody else is a big question mark. And so yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. Next question.
You definitely did. There are, if the prediction, I wouldn't say prediction, but if I'm trying to think of the right word for this. If the theory of 4 quarterbacks being taken in the first round is true, which would be your Trubisky, which would be your Mahomes, which would be your Watson, and which would be your Kizer. Kizer would probably be the 4th quarterback taken. I would assume that there would be a quarterback in the second round taken.
Probably.
And if not, then absolutely the third round. But my question would be, after those 4, who do you see would be the 5th quarterback taken?
Probably Davis Webb.
Webb?
I think he's the closest. I keep track of when I do my quarterback stuff, I actually have thresholds, and they're not like anything special. Like most people who evaluate quarterbacks have, I'm essentially using their thresholds. And outside of the top 4, Davis is probably the best one in terms of meeting the thresholds. Now, he doesn't meet most of the thresholds. Most of these quarterbacks don't. He doesn't meet their career completion percentage threshold. Doesn't meet the touchdown to interception ratio one. Doesn't meet the start percentage one. So that being said, he's got a massive arm. He's quicker than I think what a lot of people thought he was. He's got that 6'5" size. He's a little cocky.
Yeah, that's true.
And to some degree, you don't like that in a quarterback if it goes too far, but I think he thinks he's the best quarterback in this draft. And sometimes that's what it takes. And so I think if I were to pick a guy outside the top 4, I actually, if I remember right on my list of quarterback rankings, I have him ahead of everybody except I actually have him as my number 2 quarterback.
Really?
Yeah. And it's because, and I guess we'll get into it. You didn't ask this question, but I've been working quietly on a new stat for quarterbacks, and I can't get into too much of what it is. Because if I give it to you, then everybody can know how I predict my quarterbacks. But essentially what it does is that it's an attempt to look at consistency. It's an attempt to measure consistency, measure
predictability in a sense too.
Kind of to predict how they're going to be in situationally. That's the word I was looking for. It's an attempt to measure consistency in situational football and in tight games. It helps if it's in a tight game. You actually get more. You get graded better. So. This is my ranking in order, and it's all close numbers, and so I'm going to read off the numbers, and I want you to see if you can tell me what my quarterback ranking is based off of that. Now, some of these guys don't meet thresholds, and so they wouldn't I probably wouldn't pick them, but this is my – so first guy, number 1 guy, has 58 – his ranking is 58.2. Next guy is 56.6, so there's a big gap there. The next guy, 56.2, then 56, 55.3, 55.4, and 55.9 or 52.9. So I've got, let's see, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've only done 7 guys so far because it actually kind of takes quite a while, and I work other jobs that I don't get paid to do this. So
I've got things to do.
See if you can name off who you think are the top guys.
I feel like you've showed it to me.
I've shown you, so you're kind of but it's been a while, so you should technically know the answer to this.
It's been a while, so I've probably forgotten the order. I feel like Mahomes is number 1. Davis Webb, you already said, was number 2.
I did just say that, didn't I? Helped you out already.
I want to say Trubisky was 3.
Wrong.
Wrong.
I feel like I've managed to quote Trump at least once a week on the show.
Was Peter 3?
Okay, I'll go down it because it'll be easier. Because we're also almost out of time. We're in overtime anyways, like an NHL hockey playoff game, of which I've got to end this show soon so I can get ready to watch. Anyways, number 1, I call a stat MPS, which is next play. It's actually, next play scoring. Yeah, next play scoring, because I was going to call it next play rating, but that makes NPR, which gets real confusing. So it's next play scoring is essentially what the stat kind of is. That's part of how I measure consistency. So number 1 in this draft is Patrick Mahomes. Number 2 is Davis Webb. Number 3 is Nathan Peterman. Number 4 is Brad Kaya. Number 6, Deshaun Watson. Number 7 is Mitch Trubisky. And number 8 is Deshaun Kaiser. Now, along with that, I will say, so I'll just go ahead and say it. Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback that I deem is my top quarterback this year. Why? Because not only is he the top in MPS, which is, yes, technically my stat. So, I kind of lean on that heavily since I've made it up. And so I like that. But he is the only quarterback this year who meets every single threshold. He's got the size. He's 6'2", which is the threshold. 225 is his weight. 215 is the threshold. 9.25 inch hands. Threshold's 9 inches. His 40 times fine. He's got a great shuttle, great 3-cone drill. His velocity, threshold's 55. His is 60. And that's about as quick as you can throw a football. His MPS I already mentioned is the 58.2. His career completion percentage is 63.5. Now, part of everybody wants to sit here and say, and I'm going to go on a Mahomes, right? It's not the Texas Tech offense of Cliff Kingsbury, the player. It's not Mike Leach's air raid offense. Patrick Mahomes actually throws the ball down the field quite a bit. I can probably pull it up real quick. But that's his career completion percentage. His touchdown to interception ratio is above the 3-to-1 threshold, which is rare in this draft. I'm pulling up some of his stats real quick. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time to do things because I do work another job, or I do not get paid for this. Patrick Mahomes, his downfield. So when I'm talking downfield throws, I'm talking the ball flew from his hand, from the line of scrimmage to where the ball was caught, not yak yards. His completion percentage is 47.2%. Beyond 15 yards, which is, if I remember right, it's the highest of any quarterback this year. From 10 to 15 yards, it's 49.1%, which again, I think is pretty much the highest. And then when you get down to 5 to 10, 47.2, which is still higher than most. And then 0 to 5, 65.1, which is about average for everybody. So he's throwing the ball down the field plenty and completing passes. You look at his touchdowns, because I keep up with this, plus 15 plus yards, where the ball flew 15 plus yards in the air. 11 touchdowns just in the games I did. 1 from that 10 to 15 range, 4 from 5 to 10, 2 from 0 to 5. So it's not like Cliff Kingsbury's offense back in the day where, you throw a 2-yard slant, let it run. Like Mitchell Trubisky. You look at his stats, Mitch Trubisky's stats bear out more of that kind of a stat line. Same with Deshaun Watson, really bear out that kind of a stat line instead of the heavily driven down. He throws the ball down the field a lot more. So Patrick Mahomes, he started 78.0% of his games. The Bill Parcells standard is 72%. So he's above that. The only other guys above that are Deshaun Watson and Brad Kaya, who started 100% of his games. But he falls below the thresholds on several. Same with Nate Peterman. So if you go with that, part of the problem with Mitch Trubisky, and I'll stop talking and let you ask any more questions if you have them. Part of the problem with Mitch Trubisky is that it's such a small sample size. Yes, he had a great year, 4.1 touchdown to interception ratio, 67.5 completion percentage. The start percentage, he's a junior, obviously, 33%. So, there's a question of sample size with him. And so I think, again, like I mentioned earlier, if he's one of those guys, and I think Deshaun Watson's the same way, that if they sit 2 years, a year, 2 years, I think can be decent to average to above average quarterbacks possibly. Patrick Mahomes is a taller, thicker Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I think they have almost identical arms. And just for historical context with MPS, let me pull that up real quick, and then you can ask me some questions because I know You and me have kind of talked about this. Let me see if I can find it. If I can't find it, then I won't mess with it. Here it is. Because let me give you some other names that I haven't done or that I have done yet. That I've done a couple games on. The highest I've ever done historically is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's MPS, his final year, which it's 5 games because I only have time to do 5 games a guy. That's the easiest way for me to do it. And I generally pick their best 2 games, their worst 2 games, and their most middle game is kind of the way I do that, so that I'm not getting like, oh, well, you picked 4 games where Patrick Mahomes had 8 touchdowns and no interceptions, and you picked 3 games where Mitch Trubisky was throwing in a hurricane. No, that's not how I do it. Just you have to trust me on that. Russell Wilson, 60.7, so he's light years above. I don't think I've done any of Andrew Luck's yet. Blaine Gabbert, just for historical reference, is a 56.1 of MPS. So he's there with he's above Mitch Trubisky. He's above Deshaun Kaiser. He's above Deshaun Watson. He's above Brad Kaya. So he falls in so that's kind of what you're looking at when I question it is, how good is that historically? By the way, also, I've only done 2 games of his, but Blake Bortles is at a 59.7. So still above people in this year's draft. And we know kind of how those guys have turned out so far. So, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is my number 1 quarterback, far and away. Which you didn't even ask, but I decided to give it to you anyway. So you got any?
I was going to ask that.
I figured you were. So you got any other quarterback questions for me?
I have one, but I can't answer. You can't answer that until after the draft because it depends on where the quarterbacks get drafted.
Which is you can still ask me.
Who would be the first quarterback to see regular season action?
Yeah, obviously it depends on where they go. I think the most ready, not the one maybe who will. I'll answer it that way. The one who's most ready, and I know I'm harping on him a lot. The most ready is Patrick Mahomes, and because Patrick Mahomes' game style is very similar to Russell Wilson's, in that he's an improviser, so he can go to a team that maybe had an injured that has a starter get injured and gets thrown into that situation, or maybe he just goes to camp and beats somebody out like Russell Wilson did with Matt Flynn. So I could see him being a guy. He's the only guy I think who can get thrust into a starting position and go 500. I'll put it that way. I think now, obviously, it depends on where they go. If Mitch Trubisky goes to New York, I think he probably starts there because you're going to start Josh McCown. If Deshaun Watson goes there, he probably, to New York, he probably starts because, again, who are you going to start? Part of it still depends on where Jay Cutler ends up. If Jay Cutler ends up going somewhere that one of these guys gets drafted at, Jay Cutler probably starts day 1. You wait until the season's out of their hands, and then you start your rookie. If any of those guys go to the Browns, it's a crapshoot because who knows who they're going to start. So to answer your question without answering your question, Patrick Mahomes is the most ready to start, and if he has to start, will be the most successful in his rookie year. Does that mean he's going to be the best quarterback long term? I think so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be. If I were to put money on it, I would say Mitch Trubisky probably is the first one of these guys to start. But
I will ask you that again after the draft.
Yeah, that's probably a safe question. Safe for then.
This is my last one.
Last one, because then we gotta go.
There is, I use the term first tier loosely of quarterbacks in this draft, which is Trubisky, Mahomes, Watson, and I'm going to throw Kaiser in there.
Yeah,
I'm putting him in there because
there's enough people who put him in there. I'm allowing you to put him in there.
And then I'm going to make a second tier, which is Davis, Peterman. I'm going to put Kaya and Dobbs. I'm going to put those 4 as your second tier.
I think that's fair.
let me just put it this way. Let me word it this way. Outside of those 8 quarterbacks, who is a day 3 guy, maybe probably projected rounds 6 through 8, or 6 or 7? That could go into camp and possibly beat a veteran out for a spot, or could possibly shock someone as far as maybe being a starter.
Well, I'll answer that question with
Let's put it this way: outside of those 8, who is the best quarterback in the draft?
define best. Pure talent. Chad Kelly. Will Chad Kelly ever start a game in the NFL? Probably not. Does Chad Kelly need to start a game in the NFL? Probably not.
Well, okay, let me put it this way.
No, I know what you're asking. I'm just kind of being a little whatever about it.
Sure.
The answer to your question, and it'll be an answer that I know our good buddy Roger will enjoy, and I don't say it just because of that. I think the best non-big name quarterback
That's probably the best way to word it.
In this draft, the best sleeper quarterback, so to say, the guy who's got the best chance to be the Tom Brady, so to speak, of this draft, is a small school guy. You got any idea?
No.
It's the only top quarterback, I say top quarterback loosely, who's not a D1 FBS player, and that guy is a guy by the name of Alec Torgerson out of Penn. I think he's probably the next best guy, and I would actually probably, sorry, everybody, for that bang that you just got. I would actually probably rate him ahead of Kaya. Now, I actually like Kaya. I know a lot of people don't. His velocity's low. I think he's he's really the only one who's come out of a true pro-style offense. These last couple years or especially this last year at Miami, was very much a pro-style offense. He looked comfortable in it, but we also kind of know the track record of Mark Richt quarterbacks. So I'm not holding out high hopes for Brad Kaya. But I would probably put, if Alec Torgerson was at a bigger school, I think he would probably be in that Davis Webb, Brad Kaya, Nate Peterman category, because you're probably looking at a 5th, 6th rounder, maybe a 7th rounder. But I think the arm's there's talent there. He's went to Penn. He's a smart kid. So, and I mean this in the positive way, before he was bad, and struggled a lot. I think he's similar to the Ryan Fitzpatrick type. I know they're both Ivy League guys, and so that seems like an easy comparison. But I think he's a guy, Alec Torgerson is a guy who's going to stick in the league for a long time, because he's going to have the ability to pick up playbooks quickly. He's going to have the ability to make the throws he needs to make within those playbooks, within those systems. He's going to maybe bounce around a lot at first until he finds a spot where he's good. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think his ceiling maybe isn't as high as a lot of people think Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson is, but I think that the talent is there for him to be in the league a long time. Maybe I'm trying to think of a good comparison, Matt, because I think he's better talent-wise than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm trying to think of a guy. Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan may be a good comparison in terms of he's a guy who doesn't always get named as a top guy, right off the bat. I think obviously this last year changes that a little bit. But he's always been a solid, 12th, 13th best quarterback at his worst. When he's at his best, he's a top tier quarterback. So I think that could be what Alec Torgerson's career path could be like if he gets that shot. He could also be a Matt Schaub. Did
he go to the combine?
I don't think so.
Which I was gonna word it that way, but I didn't know if he went or not. I didn't know. I didn't know who, some of these lower tier guys who was there and who wasn't.
I don't think he did.
That's the way I wanted to word the question was, out of the quarterbacks who didn't get a combine invite, who is the best? So that probably answers that question as well if he didn't get invited.
Yeah, because, pretty much everybody else got invited.
I'm looking at a lot of the names, and even towards the bottom, some of these guys, like your Jared Evans, like your Trevor Knight, I think Gunnar Keel was also there.
Gunnar Keel, I think, isn't he a position change?
I don't know.
I want to say he's a position change. He's not going to be an NFL quarterback either way.
I
A guy to keep an eye on. CJ Beathard is a guy to keep an eye on out of Iowa. I don't think he's got the talent. He doesn't meet a lot of the statistical on the field thresholds. He does meet them all barely in the other department, in the size and age department. So he's got that going for him. He could sneak in and kind of be one of those guys who hangs around for a while, like a Josh McCown, who just happens to be, or a Tommy Maddox. There's a name. Who just sticks around forever with one team as the backup. I could see him being kind of like that, a spot starter here and there. I know some people at the Combine were a little impressed with Mitch Leidner out of Minnesota. I'm not. He's got massive hands, but a guy who I would say is a big hit or miss guy. And this will be where I'll end it, because we need to go. But a guy who could be a big hit or miss type of guy could either be a Russell Wilson or could be out of the league tomorrow. Is Sefo Lofau out of Colorado. Watching his tape, I really like him. He didn't have a great combine. He ran a terrible 40. I think he's still a little hampered from the season. He runs better than a 5.08 40 on tape. So I don't know what that was. His shuttle time's pretty good. And his broad jump was not great, but could have been worse. I think he is a guy who, if he gets to the right place, if he gets in the right system, I could see him being an undrafted free agent quarterback who
makes a roster.
Could make a roster, kind of like Trayvon Boykin. And actually, I would really like to see him in Seattle because I think Sefo kind of fits that style. We never carry more than 3 quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if we sign him as an undrafted free agent and then let him and Trayvon battle between who's going to be Russell Wilson's backup. So who's going to take like 3 snaps next year?
This is just me personally. I feel like at least one quarterback. I don't know if you guys draft a quarterback in the later rounds or let an undrafted quarterback come in, but I feel like they're definitely going to bring in a quarterback to battle out Boykin, especially after his off-the-field stuff recently.
Yeah.
I think they're going to let him play for his roster spot, and if he does well in camp, they're going to keep him on. But if he slips a little bit, I think they're going to be like, all right, that's enough to let him go.
Yeah.
That's me personally. I don't follow the Seahawks as well as you do, but I can see that happen.
No, I absolutely can see that happen. That's kind of the Seahawks' philosophy. There's a lot of open positions. Of course, apparently we're going to be looking for a new cornerback at some point in time. Also, don't take that out of the equation in the first round, and this is actually where we'll end it. I would not be surprised if Seattle jumps into the top 10 at some point by trading Richard Sherman.
Oh.
I could see that happening on draft day, and then them picking a Marshawn Lattimore or one of the other top, probably a Marshawn Lattimore, one of the other top corners. So yeah, Sefo, I could see him signing as an undrafted free agent and sticking on in Seattle, and then we kind of mentioned him too as another guy, a late round guy, not necessarily a guy who goes undrafted or 6-7 guy, but a late fourth, early 5th round guy. I think Josh Dobbs has a real chance of being a decent quarterback. Again, I think he's the kind of guy I didn't talk about him when we were talking during the draft. I could see him going to the Browns late if they don't go in the first round. If they don't pick one of the first round quarterbacks, I could see them picking Josh Dobbs late and letting him and Cody Kessler kind of battle out who's going to be the starter for a year until maybe they decide on another quarterback. So that's something else to keep an eye out on. Patrick, we've mock draft, we've talked some quarterbacks. Now it's time to sit back, relax. I'm going to edit this thing and watch some playoff hockey. You're going to get ready to do whatever you're going to do.
I got the Cardinals game on, and also the Grizzlies play pretty soon, if not
the Grizzlies lose to the Spurs here in another couple minutes. So that'll do it. We're going to try possibly to get back in and do another pre-draft episode. But if not, guys, we will see you on draft night.
Absolutely doing a first-round draft special on Thursday.
So
for sure.
If not next week, if not Monday or Tuesday, for sure on Thursday.
For sure on Thursday.
So we will see you guys then.
Leslie, I typed your symptoms into the thing up here, and it says you could have network connectivity problems.
Baby Jeffrey, forever unclean.
Cool beans, man. I live by the quarry. We should hang out by the quarry and throw things down there.
Can't find my driving moccasins anywhere!
You're stealing the Declaration of Independence.
I feel like we're not capturing the elegance we discussed in the production meeting.